I'm James Demer, the audio nomad, and today we're going to do kind of a review on the INAWAKEN DAWN Ms IEMs, but it's also going to be a little tutorial on how I use these IEMs in Sydney, Australia, while I was running the Sydney Marathon and recording it for iFIT. Let's get started. I just got home from Sydney, Australia, where I had a job running the Sydney Marathon and recording two talent who were being filmed while running the Sydney Marathon. And the company that hired me is called iFIT, and they produce video content for Nordic Track treadmills. I think it's like a paid subscription service where if you're running on the treadmill and you pay for this service, you can see video content from around the world where people are running and they're talking to you about the experience. In this case, it was the Sydney Marathon, and there were two on-camera talents that I was responsible for recording audio for. Of course, there were also cameras on the talent. What I want to talk about in relationship to the INAWAKEN DAWN IEMs is how I use these IEMs exclusively for the entire trip, from leaving my house in Portland, Maine, flying, 30 plus hours to Sydney, Australia, doing the job and flying home. In a nutshell, they're phenomenal. They're around $50, so I wasn't super concerned about losing or breaking them, but they're made really well and I didn't lose them or break them. Sound quality is exceptional. They are clear. They have great dynamic range. They have good separation and detail. It's a single dynamic driver, so they tend to have that single DD quality where there are no crossovers. Everything feels very natural and well balanced. They isolate noise really well, which is important because not only do I use IEMs on an airplane to listen to music, but I also put them in to just block sound. The sound of a jet, the sound of people talking, babies crying, whatever. I could wear these easily for a 15-hour flight and not take them out of my ear, except for maybe speaking with a flight attendant or my seatmate to say hello. And they're comfortable. They're great. They were also great on the job. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit about how I use them on the job of recording a marathon and show you some of the gear that I used. I had to run 27 miles roughly with an audio kit. And this is the kit that I used. It's a Sound Devices MixPre 6 connected to a Wisycom MCR 54 receiver. And basically the MixPre 6, Sound Devices MixPre 6 is what I use to adjust the levels of the audio coming in and to record the audio to an SD card. The MCR 54, looking for a transmitter, basically is a receiver that receives a signal from this transmitter, or a transmitter like this. This MTP60 was worn by each talent, the people running that we were filming, and they would wear a Danish Pro Audio or DPA, what is it, a 4188? I can't remember the number, but it's a standard face mic. And this microphone is probably one of the best sounding face mics that you can buy, or headset mic. I like them. They're clean, they're clear. They have great dynamic range. They have very little noise floor. And in the case of the Sydney Marathon, because it was super, super windy, I had to put this like mini ball gag, they call it, or a dead cat, but it's a super fuzzy thing, a ball essentially that goes over the mic capsule that eliminates or certainly diffuses wind noise. It was so windy in Sydney, like gusts of 40 miles an hour, that even this little fuzzy thing didn't quite knock out all the wind at times. It depended on where we were on the course, but generally it worked pretty well. So each talent was wearing one of these and one of these. And this, as I said, was being transmitted to my mixer, which I was wearing. It also has a little mini SD card in it that I could record to. And that was good because if I ever got separated from the two runners, then the audio would still be recorded to this pack. Or if there was some radio frequency interference or really anything like that. Because this is a situation where we can't do over, right? We're just running this thing and there's only one Sydney Marathon, 40,000 people running it. We had one chance to get it right. So I had backups on backups. In addition to each talent wearing one of these transmitters and one of these face mics, I also had a mic hidden under their shirt that went to a Tentacle Track E recorder. So that was the backup. Luckily, the audio all sounded great and we never had to use that. Now, because we're filming with a camera on a gimbal, which were two GoPros, and then we had two Sony FX3 cameras that were also shooting talent and B-roll and so on and so forth, we have to have time code sync. And time code is basically a time of day clock that is accurate to 1/24th of a second. And in this case, we were actually rolling at 23.976 frames per second, or 23.98. I use these little Tentacle Sync E boxes. I had one on each camera and one on my little Sound Devices MixPre 6 so that time code was all synced up. And then I would use an app called Tentacle Time Bar to flash this screen, which is my phone, to the GoPro, because the GoPro doesn't have any way of internally measuring time code. And every time we cut and restart the GoPro, we would have to show the camera this time code, which is hours, minutes, seconds, and those frames I was telling you about. In addition to the two talent mics, the two backup mics, and the time code, I also had to send an audio feed of the two runners to a script supervisor who was also running the marathon, and a producer who was meeting us at points along the course on a bicycle, as well as running some of it. So I had these Sennheiser G4 IFBs. Essentially, it's a transmitter. This middle one here is a transmitter that I had attached to my mixer pack I was running along with, and it would send a signal to a producer who was wearing one of these. It's essentially like the same kind of pack that you'd see musicians wearing on stage. It's a way that they could hear the audio that I was sending them into their headsets. That system worked pretty well. In addition, I also had two microphones on a baseball hat that were going to two more of these Wisycoms, and that was basically being recorded as kind of an ambient noise, so that the editor could use it as just a general non-dialogue ambience of the runner, of the sound that the runner would be hearing while they were running, or that you as an audience member would be hearing. They were also going to use it as a phase reverse, where they would phase flip one of the microphones and potentially be able to cancel out things like music, if there were music playing that we didn't have the licensing rights to. I don't know how that worked out. I sent them the audio this morning and hopefully everything is good. I'm not the editor. I just do the location stuff. So that's 4 tracks. That's actually 6 tracks. We've got talent A, talent B, each wearing one of these. That's 1, 2. Talent A, talent B, each wearing the hidden microphone on their shirt. And then hat mic left, hat mic right. So that's 6 audio tracks being recorded. 1 left-right mix of the talent being mono mixed to the script supervisor and the producer. And then the last thing that I was responsible for was called a phonak, or an earwig. And the script supervisor had a transmitter and a little microphone, and she would speak into the microphone, and that would get transmitted to basically a receiver that each talent was wearing. And they had a induction loop necklace, and then it's almost like a hearing aid that went in their ear that would receive the signal from the induction loop. And so they could hear what the script supervisor wanted them to say. And it might be something like, hey, you need to slow the pace down or you need to speed the pace up because we were required to run at a certain pace. It might be something like, hey, the Sydney Opera House is coming up on the left, or anything like that, really. So that's how I did my job. And I used these INAWAKEN DAWN IEMs. And they were fantastic to run in. I had them in my ears for 6 hours of running. I did get a little sweaty. It was a fairly cool day, but they stayed in my ears. They were comfortable. I was able to hear both Dan and Adam clearly. I had them separated, so I had Dan in my left ear, Adam in my right ear. Those are the two talents. And for dialogue audio, these are great. For music, they're great. For movies, they're great. It's really a phenomenal little single dynamic driver IEM. The build quality is phenomenal. If I were going to complain about anything, maybe I'd say that this swirly pattern on the faceplate is, it's like this decorative artsy thing that seems to be popular these days. I'm not into it. I like more of a clean aesthetic. I would prefer them just to be either plain or clear or metal or something that's more simple than decorative. But in terms of sound quality, there's really nothing that I can complain about. Make sure you get a shirt clip if you're going to be using your IEMs on the go. I don't think these came with a shirt clip, but I put shirt clips on all my IEMs because I've had them fall off and I've stepped on them. That's about all I can say on the INAWAKEN DAWN MS IEM. That's a mouthful. I liked them. They were great for the job. They're $50. You can buy them at linsoul.com. If there's anything that you want to learn more about my job, or if you found this interesting, put a comment or a question below. I'd be happy to tell you more about what I do and how I started doing this and the gear that I use. If you're not interested, let me know too. I'm trying to figure out what content you all are interested in receiving from me. And until next time, I'm James Demer, the Audio Nomad. Thanks for watching. This video is brought to you by Linsoul.com. Linsoul sells IEMs, headphones, amplifiers, digital to analog converters, cables, really just about anything you could want for personal hi-fi or even home hi-fi. Their prices are great, the quality is exceptional, and their customer service is really second to none. Check them out in the link below.